Thank you friends and my dear students for encouraging and giving your valuable feedback on my first upload on Fast Recap on Java series. I have tried to incorporate my well-wishers' valuable feedback on my today's lecture, types of data and scope of variables. Types of data. There are two types of data in Java language. One is primitive and the other one is non-primitive. The primitive data are data type which are predefined. Predefined is something which is already defined in the compiler. Also known as fundamental data types. Based on these data types, we will be writing different kind of Java programs. It has fixed size. Every predefined data types are defined with their sizes. For example, char, int, double, float, etc. They will be having single values. Single values in the sense they will be having values based off their types. For example, if I am talking about int data type, then it will have integer values that will be positive or negative. If I am talking about float values, it will have the real part, that is the decimal points in it. If I am talking about the character value, it will be having a single value which will be enclosed under a single quotes. Then the second type of data is non-primitive data types. Non-primitive data types are generally defined by the user, the person who is going to code the program. But these data types are derived from the primitive data types. We may have the combination of primitive data types in it. We may have a collection of single data types in it. For example, class. In a class, we can define many types of data. We can define a int data, we can have a char data, we can have a string data. While in case of arrays, we can have more number of elements of the same data types, which will get covered when we'll be specifying our lecture on arrays. The size of the non-primitive data types will depend upon the types of primitive data types we are using. For example, if I am going to define an array of int data type, the size of the array multiplied by the size of int will be the actual size of non-primitive type, that is array. Now, I am going to talk about the variables and its scope. To store the different types of primitive data types, we need some fixed memory or some defined memory location. That memory location is known as variables or identifiers. Variables are normally the naming or the names which starts with an alphabet. It may have digits in it. No special characters are allowed other than underscore. Why do we need to declare a variable? Compiler, the Java compiler or any other language compiler, allocates memory to the variables which we will be using in the program. For example, if I am trying to calculate area of a square, then I'll be needing side of that square. To store the side of square, I'll be needing a variable. There are two ways to initialize a variable. Initializing means giving values to the variables. The two types of initializing a variable is static and dynamic. What happens if we are not defining the variables with its values? If we are not defining the variables with its default value or the values given by the programmer or the coder, the variable will be having the garbage value, which may lead to a wrong output. Now let's focus on different types of initialization. First is static. When the variables are directly assigned with the values, we call that as static. Normally it is done while coding the program, or when the programmer is coding the program, he or she initializes the different variables with its fixed data values. For example, when I say char C is equals to A, or double B is equals to 7.89. I am defining the variable B with the value 7.89 while writing the program. The second type of initialization is known as dynamic. When the variables gets its value during the execution of the program. or when we are running the program to get our desired output, that time the variables gets its value, and that initialization is known as dynamic initialization. It is done normally by the compiler, and the variables will be having the value of a statement or value of an expression. For example, when I say int c is equals to a plus b, the variable c will get its value, that is the summation of the variable a and b, only when I will be executing this program. Now let's talk about types of variables. Types of variables based on the scope or based on the life of the variables are divided into local variables and global variables. Local variables are the variables which are declared inside a block. Now you must be knowing what is a block. Block is normally the statements written under a set of balanced curly braces. We define that as a block. Variables which are declared inside a function, that is a function block, or inside a constructor block or a loop block. Those variables will lose its scope outside that particular block. For example, if I have defined a variable under a function block, the moment the function will get over, the life of that variable will also get over. Hence, we call those variables as local variables. Global variables. Variables which are declared inside a class. The number of variables which we will be defining inside or immediately after the class declaration, the life of those variables will remain throughout the program or till the class exists. These global variables are further divided into class variables and instance variables. Now, the similarity between class variables and instance variable is both are global in nature. Both are defined inside the class block. The class variables vary in terms of the class variables will not create any copy for any instances or objects of the class. And we define the class variables with the keyword static. I will be explaining this more in detail when we will see one example. Instance variables are the variables which are again defined inside the class block, but each instances will have its own set of instance variable. It means a value will not be shared amongst different instances of a class, as we all know that we can create any number of objects from a class. Here I have tried to explain you the concept of local instance class variables with the help of an example. In the program given below, state the name and the value of the method argument or the argument variable. Now I have given a code. Class trial, that is the name of the class is trial. Here the body of the class begins. Int I is equals to 5. Int x is static. Int x is equals to 9. Public static void main, this is a function block. Trial OB is equals to new trial. I have tried to create an object for the class trial. System.out.println x, ob.example8, int a is equals to 4, system.out.println a. Now this is the second function, void example, and I am trying to pass one argument, that is int m. I am trying to print the value of m and x in this particular block. Now my question is, name the class variables, the variables which are global but which are static in nature. As you all know that the variables which are defined with the keyword static will be known as class variable. So here we have defined variable x with the keyword static. So x is the class variable. Now comes local variable. The variables which are defined inside a block or inside a function is known as local variable. For example, I have defined variable a over here, that is inside the main block. I have defined the variable m over here inside the example block. Next comes instance variable. The instance variable is again the variable which is global in nature. It means that I must have been defined that particular variable inside the class block. I have defined the variable y inside the class block but without the keyword static. Now I'll be giving few important questions based on the types of data and scope of variables.
Put up a few